Call this meeting to order. Our first, do I have to take attendance?
No. No.
Our first order of business is consensus to approve meeting minutes. Can I chunk the meetings together?
Actually,
No.
Well,
The
you
first
could
two
do
I
the two
can, right?
December, probably, but not January.
So a consensus to approve the first two meetings on the agenda from December 4th, 2017 and December 11th, 2017 for all past board members.
Yes.
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 Well, I didn't go.
Oh, I'm thinking you're going last.
This isn't my meeting.
Oh, I
Yes.
should be.
Yes.
All
Oh,
set?
boy.
Good. Motion, did I say motion carries? Yep. Motion carries, sorry. Okay, next, consensus to approve meeting minutes from January 16th, 2018. That would be all of us. Pat?
Yes.
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 I have to abstain, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, with the corrections I gave in.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, the policy and possible consensus, proposed adoption of the revised policy for the homeless students.
So this policy would replace an older policy, JECBC, and that policy was last revised in '03. The revisions you'll see in the shaded aspects of the policy and regulation, and the strikeouts are what would be omitted. And this is to align our current policy with state statute.
Karen?
Yes. On page 2, under Roman numeral 3, letter A, could you give me a little bit more information about health services? Does that mean our school physician? What does that entail?
In some cases, it could be our school physician. In other cases, Dr. Valentin is also accessible to our students when needed, when and if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to clarify, this is the first read for this
Yeah,
policy.
thank you. I was just gonna, such a sad thing we have to consider. Very, very sad thing, honestly. Kind of broke my heart a little bit. I actually do have a question.
Yes.
I mean, do we, without being specific, yeah, we do
do.
have to deal with this.
We do.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's all I needed to hear.
Any other, yes, Mr. Ray?
What efforts do we make to identify these students? How do we go about this?
Well, generally, upon the registration process, we would be able to identify some families, and others is, it comes up when circumstances change within the family. And, you know, oftentimes the principal will be the one to get that first call. We do have a liaison at the district level, which is our director of PPS, who will assist with the paperwork that's involved to get transportation squared away and otherwise.
Now, if we have, like, say, a family that's homeless and they drive into Wallingford in their car and they park like in back of Masters Manor, do we have a way of finding out that there's a child in that family, and then do we intervene at that point, or do we wait for them to come to us?
I don't know. I mean, if it would be, the police might reach out to us, community services or youth and social services would reach out to us. Certainly, we don't have anyone within district who might find out that on their own through their own, you know, ability, but we are well connected with our town services who will bring it to our attention.
And Masters Manor has brought things to our attention in the past, as well as Carrie said, Youth and Social Services is really key in this process.
Good, yeah.
And Craig and his staff have been remarkable in tipping us, giving us those tips that we can proactively approach families, not in a way that we don't want to support them, but proactively, because if a family can prove that their prior residence, as you have read, has been Wallingford, then we have a responsibility if they get relocated to another town, and that might even mean transportation. So, we have that responsibility. We take it very seriously, but we're very fortunate. I think that even with Eloise has brought items to our attention through other channels. So, in the health department. So we're very fortunate that we all get together often, because we have the Wallingford Forum that meets every other month. So we're able to have these conversations. So there's really great lines of communication open.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question, Dr. Menzo. So in the instance where we get a student who becomes homeless and relocates to a far, let's say Bridgeport, whatever, he's got a relative living there, so and we now have to pay transportation to get him back to Wallingford. From a budget perspective, where do we pull that from contingency? Where do we pull that money from?
We look first to transportation, out of district
That
transportation.
transportation, I was thinking first,
Yeah.
but it's always in a negative to
I
begin
know.
with.
Well, actually, I think it's relatively in the positive at this point, but we do look there first to apply it to the correct line item. But then, if it was necessary, we'd make a transfer
From contingency? Okay,
to
thanks.
cover, and we would document that along the way.
Okay, thanks.
Are you doing both together, the regulation as well?
Yes.
Okay. I do have a question, 2 questions on the regulation. The first on page 1, Roman numeral 1, section B. Unaccompanied youth includes a homeless child or youth not in the physical custody of a parent or guardian. Who would that include? Grandparents, some state agency, what?
Any of the above?
It actually, all of the above, as well as it could be a family friend, it could be a sibling that is not, it could be a sibling, it could be a cousin. There's a wide range
Okay.
of people who that could be.
And then on page 9, district liaison, since I went through the entire thing and it said, we would expect to provide for this student what we would provide to any student. So on number 20, I would include readiness for college or career.
Okay.
Do we,
Yes, Roxanne.
yeah, looking at that number 20, is there a point, let's say we have a high school student who sadly is in this situation and is over the age of 18? Is that a factor, or is it because as long as they're a matriculating student, we're responsible? The age is not a factor?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Any further questions?
So, just a comment, because you kind of brought this to my attention now. Number 20 almost seems redundant to earlier in the, I don't know if it's in the policy or the reg, it states we have to treat these kids like any other students, so why do we even have to point out number 20? That's just treating them like any other student.
I think that they're protected under a certain act that our other students aren't protected under, and I think to advise them of that moving forward is really helpful. I think it's the McKinley.
McKinney-Vento.
Vento
There you
Act.
go.
But that's
Yes.
mentioned in here as well. So, okay, it's fine, but to me, it's just like.
It's
kind of
redundant.
Yeah, but,
Sometimes it's stated more than once.
That's true, that's fine.
I do have one.
Well, is it tied to the preparation and readiness for college? Is that the focus more than anything else?
Yeah, but that would be for any of our kids, right?
Well, but the fact they're eminent, I mean, they're high school students. We wouldn't necessarily make that connection for like a third grader, obviously.
I think
right?
it's called out because it's such a concern, especially, for all high school students, but also for students who tend to not have a stable, residency
Right.
because of these concerns and these issues, that it's even more incumbent upon a district. So I believe it's called out in that manner because they want to make sure that districts are holding that responsibility true. Not that we wouldn't, but there might be other places that it might not be as substantiated and followed through upon.
Okay.
And this section of the regulation also specifies what the roles and responsibility of the district
District is.
liaison are.
Yeah.
So while under McKinney-Vento, it states that students have the same access to everything that all of the students within Wallingford Public Schools would. This is repeated in this section because it talks about what the responsibilities of the district liaison are.
Okay,
So
got it.
that person will ensure that the child has access to counselors for college and career
That's a very
planning.
good point.
Thank you. Karen?
And this would also apply to a student that has special education needs, so it
Correct.
could go beyond age 18.
Correct.
Correct. Correct.
Any other questions, comments? Are we ready to vote on a consensus?
We don't take
No, we don't do
consensus.
that.
We
It's
don't
the
take
first read.
consensus.
Three.
It's the
Yeah.
first read
We
of
just-
3.
yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
So
Moving
as
forward.
always, if you have any other questions or comments or anything else that you would like to add to the policy or the regulation, just please let me know, or when we do the second read, you can let me know at that time as well.
And this came right out of, I'm assuming, from either attorney or Cave.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's pretty boilerplate.
So the next time you'll see this is at the board meeting under instruction.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, presentation on winter screening results. Dr.
Okay,
Menzel?
so
Oh.
actually, it's me.
Ms. Latour?
I placed in front of you a copy of the presentation so you could follow along. This is a follow-up from our November instructional meeting where we reviewed school improvement plans. Within the school improvement plans were information about not only Smarter Balance, but our initial fall screening for both the IRLA and for STAR. So included in your packet is information about IRLA from December, which was our last screen window, STAR testing in both ELA and math from the winter screening window, and then information regarding our intervention numbers. So how many of our students entered intervention in the fall based on our data points and our guidelines, how many exited, how many new students entered based on results from winter, and our winter caseload information. So I broke it down by school. If you look at Cook Hill, you will see the 3 grade levels are along the bottom, so kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2. And the blue is the October information, and the orange is December information. So what you'll see for Cook Hill is a decrease in the number of students or percentage of students in the emergency level. The at-risk changes dependent on, the grade level, and then proficient, that means the student is exactly where they should be for this time of year in the grade level that they're in. Our STAR testing, just to explain why there's all this gray on the charts for K2. Kindergarten, we made a decision this year as an intervention group to give the children in kindergarten a 3-month breather, to allow them to get used to being in school full day, to get them settled in their classrooms, to enjoy just a little bit of time, to get to know their classmates, to get to know their teacher, to immerse themselves in what is a different schedule than many of them have experienced. So, you will notice for the fall there isn't data as it relates to any of our screens. In winter, our students take STAR for kindergarten in early literacy. There is not a STAR math for kindergarten. We do other things in the area of mathematics with our kindergarten students. And you'll notice for first grade as well, our first graders engage in early literacy, which is a lot of the pre-emergent reading skills. And then second grade starts with the regular reading portion of it. So as you notice for Cook Hill, they've made a lot of nice increases in our students who are scoring in the proficient level. As a reminder, the proficient level this year, we changed from last year, which was, last year was 40% and up, and we felt that in order to really be proficient, you should be at the 50th percentile or above. And so Cook Hill's made some really nice increases in all aspects of the STAR testing, both early literacy, reading, and math. And then our intervention numbers you'll notice here. Again, just a reminder, kindergarten, there was no fall intervention. Our intervention teachers pushed into the classrooms, both during the reading and the math block in every single class. And through those efforts, through really good quality Tier 1 instruction, only 3 students at Cook Hill entered intervention through the winter screen results. You'll see the numbers for fall and winter as well. They've exited a lot of students out of intervention through collaborative work in intervention and with the classroom teacher, and very few students were newly identified in the winter screen. We will screen again in April.
Mike?
You know, I should have asked this a long time ago, but the STAR test, when it was given in the fall, is it the same exact one that's given in the winter? Or is
No.
the same material covered but different examples?
There's different examples, different questions, and it's adaptive. So when children get on STAR Renaissance to take the test, it will adapt to how many questions the child's getting correct versus how many questions the child is getting wrong, and it kind of will get to the area that, in grade level, that the child is working within. So it's not the same experience.
Then how do you know there's been improvement if it's not the same stuff that's being covered?
Because
in the first test?
Their scale score grows, their instructional plan, you know, the types of questions they're getting are different. And as you look at the instructional planning reports, you'll see the areas of strength where they're strong in reading and math, and the areas that they still need work.
All right, but you're in 5th grade now.
Yep,
The math you're getting in the fall,
yep.
and that the STAR, I'm assuming the STAR test is going to test that content that you're getting in class in the fall.
It's
Or
not
is it
about the
more general?
content that you're getting in class. So it's aligned with the Connecticut core standards. And so as the child is going through the 5th grade core standards, if the child's getting the answers right, it will continue to give you questions along that strand. If you're getting them wrong, it drops you down a little bit to try to get where the child's at. It's very much an individualized experience for the student.
Is there any way we can get a sample?
I don't think so. I can give you some sample questions, but I can't, you know, go through a whole test with you. I can give you what questions look like.
You can't. All right.
As we get closer to Smarter Balance, I can show you, like, practice test-wise sample questions. STAR is a little bit more difficult to give you a sample test.
All right.
So this is EC Stevens. So again, you'll see from the perspective of the IRLA, which is for new members of the board, it is the reading assessment that we're using. It is individualized, done with the teacher one-on-one with the student. So you'll see here that our numbers of students in the emergency level and at risk have decreased, while our students' proficiency levels have increased. The administrators and the teachers in every building, you're going to hear me say this as we get to each school, have done a really nice job meeting collaboratively during their grade level time to talk about where our students are reading, honing in on a focused area of instruction for small group work during the literacy block, and we've seen some really nice gains as time has gone on, and I continue to see that as we head into the spring screening. EC Stevens has also shown nice growth with their STAR testing, especially through early literacy and in math and reading. And here are their intervention numbers. Highlands data is next. Kindergarten went up, yep. You know, it's one of those, kindergarten has 4 different levels that the students go through. And so, you know, as we look at, because every grade level is a little bit different in terms of how many levels the students are working through, how much time each level takes. And in kindergarten, The first three levels are relatively short in terms of a time span that you would expect a student to pass through. The first three levels of yellow are about 6 to 8 week levels, and then they go into more of an extended time. But at this point, you know, when we look at February and March, I continue to see growth in that particular grade level as well.
If I could just say, I mean, I think if you, could you go back to EC Stevens for a second? So if you look at this is the pattern that you'd want to see, like you see at EC Stevens and Cook Hill. A pattern where you see, obviously, the emergency going down, potentially the next level at risk going down also, but might go up a little bit because emergency would go into at risk,
Right.
and then you'd have your proficiency go up. Highland is not seeing the same trend as significantly, but I just want to, because I saw the looks, and I just didn't want to leave it unstated. Not that we're suggesting that they're not working hard and that students aren't making progress, but it's an area of focus, and Carrie is working with the principal as well as the interventionists. And you'll see some similarities even when you get to some of the other schools, that we're not seeing the level of growth that we are seeing. So Carrie has worked very closely with the principals at the schools where they're seeing a lot of growth to determine what are the bright spots, what are the key areas of success. Can those be transferred? Is it a school-based thing? Is it a whatever it may be? So we're trying to dig deeper into that, because we are obviously seeing some great things. And so you have to take everything into consideration. But I didn't want to, because I did see, I have the vantage point of seeing everyone's face. I saw the look of, okay, this is different. And I'm not doing this to obviously call anyone out inappropriately, but just I wanted to make sure that you know that we know that it's different. The principals are well aware and are working very, very hard, take these things very seriously, as well as the staff. So I just wanted to put that out there for all of you.
But let me ask you, I mean, could that be also a reflection of change of population in a school? For example, if you get mid-year 3, 4, 2, I don't know what the magic number is, but students that come mid-year that are ELL students, that could skew your numbers. There could be
Absolutely.
anomalies.
There's a lot of layers,
there's-
and that's
yeah.
really where it's difficult, and we have to, the cautionary tale is that we're giving you really a helicopter view. It's not,
Right.
the principals are the ones who land the helicopter
Right.
and get in the weeds. As Carrie said, they've done a great job working with their grade level teams, looking at the data, and that's the data that they're peeling away the layers.
Right, I mean, there are factors.
Yeah.
It isn't,
Right.
you know, it's not apples to apples, fall to winter necessarily.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
And
just making
two,
that
it's
point.
important to recognize reading is a very developmental process, and these numbers are fluid. You could pull these numbers a week later and see a very different graph. So it really, you know, is guided by, and we've worked very hard this year, that we're not just taking a snapshot every screen window. We are using this continuously, formatively, to understand where our students are, how we need to best meet their needs, and where we need to bring them. And, you know, the teachers are doing great work at grade level under the guidance of not only their principals, but the coaches attend, the intervention team attends, special education attends, EL bilingual attends, so that we're talking about every student, and we're talking about what each student needs in order to move forward.
Karen?
Sometimes, you know, I'd be curious to see what this cohort group looked like before, because sometimes, you know, there's just a certain mix in a certain grade that, for whatever reason, does not perform as we would expect. And I think it's important to tease the very things out that you said, so that when we're looking at a cohort group, I'd be curious to see what the prior year looked like for that second grade class. I think you're making, you know, progress in the first grade group, but I'm a little concerned about that second grade cohort and what might have occurred there, or might be, certainly there's some progress, but not as much as we may like to see, so.
Kathy?
Yeah, I just want to, I'm one who tends to not get too concerned with data, because you can massage it a million different ways and have it come up with different results for you. I want consistency throughout the schools, and I want them to understand that, at least from my perspective, this is one of many tools in assessing how well our kids are doing. And I don't want anybody to ever be afraid of being truthful in what this is showing, because again, it's one of many tools. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Patty?
I just want to double check. So the testing at each of the schools is done the same exact time?
Yes, it's done within the same window. The IRLA is not, though, because the IRLA is based on an individual student's growth pattern. So STAR K-12, there are 3 very specific windows in which students test. IRLA, while we took the first month of September in terms of where we placed them for the fall, from there, it is very individualized about when you retest, rescreen, or move on, because everybody's growing at a different rate. And so unlike previous years where we're looking at 3 distinct windows to rescreen with the IRLA, our focus really has been to be guided by the student and what the student needs. So that being said, while we're sitting in grade level, when we're talking about student growth over time, we're talking about indicators that we see in the classroom through observation, through small group work, that shows that the student is ready to maybe exit one level and move on to a new one. And that could happen at any time. So I can't say for first grade, we're looking at all the kids in October or by November 15th, because it's really when that student is ready to move on.
All right, so it's not really, so I can't really compare one school to the other because it could have been done at different times.
For IRLA.
Correct.
That's what I'm
For
saying, because
IRLA.
that's what we're looking at, is the early.
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
But I pulled the data at the end of the December screen window, so that's what we use in terms of where the kids are level-wise as one of our data points for who receives intervention.
Okay.
And it's really, I think that the other key point to piggyback off of what Kathy said, it's not about comparing a school against another school. It's really using the data to determine the growth within the school. So having the school look at itself and its population, and as Roxanne said, it's not apples to apples. We might have apples, but we're going to probably have two different types, because there's always changes. So again, we have to be cautious. We've really worked, as a board all along to make certain that we're cautious no matter what data we bring forward. However, we also know that there's the constant conversation about are our students performing at the level that they should perform, and are we having students be successful, not just on these assessments but state assessments. I think that the thing that we're intrigued about this year is because we did raise the score point, the cut score for STAR, we felt it was more in line with potentially the SBAC, that we're interested in seeing, okay, we have this winter assessment, our next one will come in April, which somewhat coincides with around the window of SBAC. When we get those scores back, looking at those 2 numbers, where did we fall? Is there a relationship there, or is there something else we have to dig deeper into? But Carrie's done a remarkable job with the principals and all of the support staff to really try to keep that fidelity in place, so that we could have that data to look at in that way.
So we have Highlands intervention numbers. I don't know how specifically you want me to get into each slide, but I just felt it was important to give you a representation in the same format for each school in terms of where we are with our different screen assessments and our intervention numbers.
Can you just give us a kind of a snapshot of what this intervention looks like in terms of like a first grader who's identified under, winter intervention services? So what is he or she, what does it look like?
So
for them?
if, through SRBI, which is a state mandate, well, it's through the federal mandate of RTI. Connecticut renamed it SRBI as a way of meeting that mandate. You have tier 1 instruction, which is just the instruction you're receiving in the general ed classroom through your classroom teacher. If you're identified through this process, through your STAR score and a combination of your STAR and ERLA score for reading, or your STAR, your computational fluency, or moving with math score for math, you're placed into potentially tier 2 intervention. So for a first grader, a kindergarten, or a second grader, you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 3 times per week in a small group, getting instruction in reading and or math in addition to what you're receiving through your tier 1 supports. So you're not getting pulled out of reading to get reading help. You're getting your full, reading instruction during the literacy block, and then during our flex block, and every school calls it something a little bit differently, you're getting some intervention through the interventionist. If you're in tier 3, you've shown some really a discrepancy with where you should be. You might be in tier 3, so it's more intensive than tier 2. It's 4 to 5 times a week. Your group size is much smaller, 1 to 3 instead of 1 to 6. These are guidelines. They're not set in stone. It depends on the number of kids that are in the building. It depends on the number of interventionists in the building. But we set forth with these guidelines as a way to provide consistent understanding of what it means to qualify for intervention, how you enter intervention, what your group size should look like, how often, but we do individualize it when we need to based on what the student needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is Moses Y Beach. And their STAR and their intervention. So when we provide intervention, we provide both push-it and pull-out services. We want our interventionists to be in the classroom as well, as we want kids to be able to get explicit small group instruction in a smaller environment that has less distraction. In every school, while they work under the same set of guidelines, also personalizes it to meet the needs of their own population. So as we head into 3-5, we have Mary Fritz, their STAR scores as well, and then intervention numbers. Parker Farms. We're all, you'll notice that we're trending in the right direction at the 3-5 level as well, with a decrease in our emergency numbers and an increase in our proficiency numbers. We have Pond Hill next, and then Rock Hill. So at each of the 3-5 schools, there's 2 full-time interventionists and a part-time interventionist. At the K2 levels, some schools have 4, some have 3. At the middle school, there is 1 reading and 1 math at each middle school. And the same goes for the high school.
And just to clarify, the reason why some have 4 or 3?
It's based on numbers. So each year we do look at the numbers carefully to make certain that we're providing adequate staff for the intervention that we're providing. And the numbers do change as the year goes on. But for the most part, we are able to meet all of our students' needs and meet them well. Even at the middle school level where they're 1 reading and 1 math at each middle school.
Quick question.
Sure.
Can you go back? I'm just looking at Rock Hill real
Yep.
quick. It looks like there's 12 students in winter intervention for reading.
That is
Is
true.
that correct? And how many reading interventionists do we have at Rock Hill?
Well, there's 2.5 right now at Rock Hill. And so they don't solely do reading, they do reading and math. And right now, they are, it's 6 in grade 3, 3 in grade 4, 3 in grade 5, if you look at the number of students in winter intervention. So currently, the model at Rock Hill has been and continues to be that there's an interventionist at the 3rd grade level, there's one at the 4th grade level, and then the halftime person works in the 5th grade level with the grade 3 and the grade 4 picking up grade 5 students as needed, since there's only a halftime person there.
But the person, just to clarify, because I asked this question also, and Carrie was quick to share, is that this person, the person or people in this school are not just pulling students out.
Correct.
If they, because there is a low number of students who are receiving tier 2 or tier 3 intervention, they're pushing more into the classroom. So they're involved with the whole class, providing resources at that point. The thing is that, again, these numbers shift, and I think that the shifting occurs because STAR is difficult because it's 3 times a year, but IRLA is more of the ongoing process, so you might see these numbers shift based on where students either they make progress or they don't make progress within the IRLA.
And all the interventionists, if they have a smaller formal caseload, they are in the classrooms working with staff and working with that at-risk population. When you go back to the IRLA chart, you'll see the emergency level, the at-risk kids, and the proficient kids. So they're looking at that at-risk level to ensure that they're getting, targeted instruction through small group within the classroom.
Mr. Votto?
Yeah, I just want a clarification on something. If you go back to the Pond Hill.
Yep.
Star. Now, I would assume the kids that are in grade 5, those same kids were in grade 4 the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the reading on watch,
Mm-hmm.
19 in grade 4 in the fall, 19% of them were on watch. Is that how you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then the following year, when they're in 5th grade,
This isn't cohort data. It's different groups, yeah. So right now, you're looking at current 4th grade and current 5th grade.
Right.
You're not looking at, 4th graders from last year and where they are in 5th grade.
well,
This is,
all right, okay.
Okay? Mm. Any questions?
One of the things that we continue to strive to look at is obviously everybody places a lot of stress on literacy, which we understand it's a gatekeeper to even numeracy. However, we are still significantly focused, and I think that Christy Medancy, our math coordinator, when she went to go visit every single classroom at the elementary school this fall and provided feedback for teachers and administrators across the district, realized that math continues to be a focus area for us. We saw that our SBAC scores did not have any growth in math, actually had gone down. So that's why when we looked at the budget and there's professional development, and I know it was called out just for the high school, but there's significant professional development for all educators at all levels, elementary, middle school, and high school in the area of math. And our teachers have really taken to the professional development, especially at the elementary level. Having Greg Tang come now 2 years in a row, working with our teachers, has made a difference. I know because being in 4 or soon to be 4 of our 8 elementary schools on a regular basis, weekly basis, never mind getting to the other ones informally, I see the use of the Greg Tang math, and it has made a difference. But again, there's a lot of growth to be made, and we're aware of that, and the staff is definitely rising to the occasion. It's just trying to move forward in a deliberate pattern. We can't change course because that is what causes people the most stress. So we want to stay focused on our course. We can't, get the flavor of the month and feel, okay, well, we don't have enough growth, so now we have to try another flavor. We have to stay our course.
So in the ensuing slides, you have the STAR Renaissance for DAG and Moran and their intervention numbers. As well as I do want to point out for the high school in particular, when you look at the fall results and then you look at the winter results, the sample size for students is not the same. So we have all of our students take the assessment in the fall, and then based on how the children perform, the students perform, there are some students in particular mathematics classes that the math in STAR Renaissance does not align with the class that they're in, so they don't take STAR. And the same goes for reading. If they score at a certain level, they test out per se. It does, and I need to make sure that you understand that. We did that purposely this year across the board because we don't want to over-assess students. So if they show or the test does not align with their current content that they're being taught, or they have reached a certain point, they're no longer need to be considered for intervention, or otherwise they do not need to retake this, 2 more times that year.
No, again, you're looking at the percentage of that particular group.
Correct.
Exactly, it makes a big difference. So
It
you
does.
could be testing, I'm gonna make up a number, 100 in the fall, but
Right.
only 50.
Correct.
And
The-
if most of the kids that weren't proficient are in that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who's next? I'm sorry.
No worries, Kathy, go.
Kathy, go ahead.
I just wanted to, another point to my point about data. You've now extracted all the kids that would
Yeah.
be pulling up that proficient number.
Potentially.
So
correct.
again, you've
Yeah.
got to be very careful when you're looking at data.
Correct.
And we listened to the teachers on that. That really was teachers and administrators who came to us and said, it doesn't make sense if a student is in an AP class, they've excelled at AP, why put them through another test like this? And so we heard that concern.
Loud and clear.
Roxanne?
So could I make just a thought? Because makes perfect sense, but I worry about the fact that
Yeah.
if somebody got a hold of this document, can we just put a little asterisk or
I
something?
absolutely will.
That explains that we don't, why those anomalies exist
Yep.
at the middle school and high school. I just would hate somebody to pick up this document and not hear the dialogue and the conversation we're having and
It is
think and
just
take
at the high
this-
school.
just at the high school, okay.
Yes.
So just to make that, just a footnote for the high school, I
Absolutely.
think would benefit everybody.
Yep.
And represent it fairly.
Definitely.
So I just want to say, you guys, so 2 things. You guys kind of predicted, when we had our numbers in the fall, you kind of predicted most of these trends would occur. So even though Mr. Shea's not on our board anymore, he was so deeply concerned. Can we just forward him these numbers? Because I just feel like he might sleep a little bit better. I'm teasing, but I'm not. No, he was deeply.
But we definitely need to put that
you know-
asterisk for the high school.
Right,
too, so.
absolutely, before you did it. But, he took it so to heart. It just really broke his heart. I thought it really resonated with him. So, but your predictions, for the most part, really came to fruition in what you presented to us. Thanks.
I can't
Tammy?
underestimate, I'm sorry, the amount of conversation that's occurring in regards to, not to Kathy's point, just on the data and the numbers, but about instruction and moving kids forward. There is, an absolute laser-like focus on each individual child and how to move them forward, regardless of where they are, and how we need to get there. So, I give great kudos to the building teachers and the principals in taking the time to have these conversations and really dig deep into each student to determine what they need in order to move forward.
Tammy?
A couple things.
Sure.
So the caseloads, that's my really only point that I struggle with. So some of the 3 to 5 have a full FTE for a grade level of 3 students, and another one has 1 FTE for a grade level of 20. Do we ever have the opportunity to share between schools as this caseload shifts?
We do. It's something to monitor. This is the first real year that we're looking so closely at caseload size and numbers. And my fear is, and it's a conversation we have to have with Mrs. Lavalette as well. You screen 3 times in 3 windows, and those numbers change within all 3 windows. So moving, people that frequently, I'm not sure about. But,
Well, in the case that I'm looking at, there's no change for the case person who's had 3 since the fall.
so, we also need to just continue to
Yeah.
look
I
at
just think
the
of
work
equity,
they're doing
that's
also
all.
in the
And-
room.
And the
Yeah.
size of intervention groups across the
No, I
schools.
understand.
That's the only thing. And another thing that comes to mind is when I went back and I watched the November instructional committee meeting, the 3 to 5 principals, all in their climate plan, they all talked about the communication piece that you just mentioned. And one principal in particular who has very good, very, very good scores, really emphasized second step and emphasized the safety in children being able to fail and being able to have empathy with the students. And I'm wondering how much of that type of a program is now impacting the instructional piece. Is that something that we're eventually going to be able to look at? Because we know not all the schools are there. Some are piloting, some are fully implemented. But that's something that, in the back of my mind, I think, are those schools seeing more growth because there's a safer environment and more empathetic classroom setting for students.
I think that's hard to tease out at this point.
Right.
But it's certainly something that we can continue to look into, maybe even through the additional questions you can add to a climate survey or otherwise.
Well, they're doing their mid-year climate survey
Yeah.
on their own, so we
Yep.
know who they are.
So, I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure if there is a connection or maybe there's an absolute connection. It's something to kind of dig a little deeper
Or
on.
to keep watch on if it's a best
Absolutely.
practice to exploit it.
Absolutely.
Do you see any correlation between partner schools? Because I'm looking at some data from some partner schools that it's very different.
Yeah, I would agree. And, as I said, this is, having been now in this position from the beginning of the year, where last year I was only here for the spring screening, you're looking at data in a very different way, and you're having conversations in a very different way. So when you look at partner schools, you look at kids, how they move through, you look at models, these are all things that are being scrutinized quite heavily and discussed by me with the principals, with the intervention teachers in general, to see kind of where our successes are and where we're still struggling, and to try to make changes to ensure that all students can benefit from making progress and moving forward with their reading skills.
Any other questions? All set?
All set?
All set?
Yeah?
Thank you.
Public, seeing no comments from the public. Can I adjourn it? I can adjourn it? This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.